Alrighty, this week in the Corona classes, we have this stuff here. Yay. Okay, so basically this is sort of an odds and ends class. Basically, I want to show you some of the automated processes that are built inside of Photoshop. Photoshop's obviously really well known for its ability to manipulate images, right? Photoshop. That's its main thing. It's literally a verb. Like you can Photoshop somebody. But it can do all sorts of things. Quite honestly, too many things. There's a lot of things I feel like it has no business doing. So, for instance, these things here. Some of them actually, these are fine, but some are not as much of a value. So, anywho, some things that you can do are the slice tool. Which basically allows you to cut an image into sections. So just as you use the crop tool and you can take a picture and you can cut it and basically clip off, you can select basically a region and then remove everything else besides that. The slice tool will let you do is sort of similar. It lets you, almost like you were using scissors, and it lets you cut the image into multiple images. So you use the slice tool and then you can export out everything that you've sliced. Save for web is what we use with the slice tool, and allows you to basically make a web page out of a Photoshop document, which I have a tutorial farther down. Photomerge will allow you to merge multiple photos together in order to make one large image. Zoomify, I don't even know if that's built into it anymore, so don't bother with that. Actions allow you to record the steps that you're doing while you're doing stuff. Basically records everything you're doing inside of Photoshop, and then, so let's say you want to make a series of filters and you want to do all these cool things. What we can do is take a photo, apply all these different filters and these different things you want to do to it, and record them with actions as you're doing it. Then open up a new photo and then apply to that photo all the things you did to the previous photo. So it allows you to record the actions that you perform while you're in Photoshop. A batch does the same thing, but what it'll do is that you don't actually have to open up Photoshop and open up a specific image. You can grab a selection of images and say run that action on all these images. You run a batch of them. Okay. A droplet is further, just like actions and then batch. Droplet's one level above, where you don't even have to open up Photoshop. What you can do is you can take that batch and make it into a droplet, and then the droplet, what you can do is take pictures and drag them onto basically like a shortcut that you'd have on your desktop, and it will automatically open up Photoshop. It will run the batch, and then that will be it. And then this last one is a high dynamic range image. Basically, a high dynamic range image, what it does is it creates, you take pictures of the same thing. You don't move the camera. It has to be exactly still. They have ways of adjusting it, but for the most part, the camera should be still, so you need like a tripod or something. And then what you do is you take that picture at different exposures. Use the different exposures in order to give you more of a range of value between the whole thing. Okay. Another thing that Photoshop can do is it can create 3D graphics. Okay, so such as you see here, I made this CJ the Seahawk model. He's pretty cool. So you can see he's actually pretty low poly. But this was something I just modeled for fun. But normally, when you do a normal 3D production, what you would do is you would draw out what you want it to do. Then you'd model it in Maya or ZBrush or some other program. You would UV the model, then you'd paint the model, and then you would render the model. In Photoshop, what we're going to do is you're going to utilize a 3D sculpting software. It could be the two I'm suggesting are either Sculpt GL or Sculptress. There's a lot of other ones out there too. You'll import the model into Photoshop. Photoshop will accept OBJs. They're a generic modeling, 3D modeling format. If you're on a Mac, actually, you can actually preview them, which is kind of cool. And then inside of there, you can actually render it out. So I actually embedded Sculpt GL right in here, so you can actually work right in here, or I think if you click here it'll go to the website that it's in there. But basically I'm going to have you just sculpt something really simple in here if you want, and then you you can model it from there. Okay. Oh, that's weird. Looks like the hotkeys don't work. I would suggest actually don't use it in the window. Go to the thing. For one, it'll be bigger. It'll be the entirety of your web browser. But also, it doesn't appear that the hotkeys are working in here. So yeah, that's what I would suggest. All right. This is actually what I make in the tutorial. It's just this stupid fish. So anyway, you can follow this tutorial. This will kind of cover how to use that Sculpt GL. And then after that, bringing it into Photoshop, and you can create a 3D thing. Basically, you'll paint it and apply materials and then render it out. Okay. 3D is one of those things that, honestly, Photoshop doesn't have a ton of business of doing, but it is nice that it is included because it allows a certain amount of flexibility. The next assignment, what I want you to do is I want you to create these automated functions. So you have to choose two. I don't care which two you use, but you have to do two of them. Still have to do a project cover sheet. You have to do a project cover sheet for every project. But you have to choose one automated image and then another automated image. Okay? And I have tutorials for them down here. So here's the slice tool to create a web page. That's what this video does. This video is to do photo merge. Don't worry about doing the zoomify part. I don't care about that. Just the photo merge. This one was also part of that. Don't really care about that. This is the action batch and droplets, and this is an HDR image. So basically, choose to do two of these. 1, 2, 3, I don't know, like 4 things. You could also choose to do 3D. That's another one of the options, but that would be these two up here. Okay. Yeah. So right. So we can just to quickly. You can use Photoshop to make a web page. So basically, you would just make an image of what you would want a web site to look like, and then you will use the slice tool in order to cut it up, and you can make links on it. Okay, that's the one option. Photomerge, what you have to do in order to do this is you have to take a camera. Hopefully, you have like a DSLR, digital single lens reflex, and maybe a tripod. And then what you do is you take a picture at one. In a direction, use an interesting location. Don't do your backyard. It looks terrible. Okay, I'm sick of those. But you take a picture, and then what you do is you just rotate the camera, and you take another picture, and then you rotate the camera, you take another picture, you rotate the camera, you take another picture, so on and so forth, until you go all the way around in a 360. But it is important, a couple of things to take note of, is one, when you take the photos, make sure it's not something that's changing. Like, don't have take pictures of like cows in a pasture, because the cows will move around, so it'll have a hard time stitching together. Also, if you can use the DSLR, that is better, so that it's steady. Shooting into the light's not great, because you can see right here there's clearly like an edge, and it's because this is bleeding into it. When you do take the pictures, make sure that you don't go beyond. Like if I take a picture and let's say it takes up this square, right? The next picture I take cannot be over here. If this is the square of the picture I took, the next picture has to overlap, right? So like the one picture has to bleed into the next picture, otherwise it doesn't know how to stitch them together. That's really the main thing out of all of it. Action batches, droplets, well, you can cover that. What the example I use, and this is what I would highly suggest, is using a watermark. Because let's say you're a photographer, right? So a really common thing that you're going to need to do is basically, you might go and do a session where you do family photography or do wedding photography or whatever, business or something. A lot of times what you'll do is that you will send them, either you have a site that you use, or you'll send them a disc or something, and you'll have the images there, and you'll be like, hey, these are the pictures, and then they can choose which ones they want. What you don't want to do is give them just the pictures, because then they'll just be like, oh, I don't want any of them, and then just take the pictures and then go have them printed. What you want to do is put a watermark on them. That way people don't steal them. But obviously you'd want the same watermark on all of your pictures. So this basically is just like kind of a shortcut on how to like apply that watermark to all of your pictures, because it's a really common thing that you would need to do. it's an obvious thing to use an action for, so you don't have to do it every single time. You could set it up and then just slap it on all of your images that you take. An HDR image, like I said before, you can see this is kind of a good example. Basically, you take a picture at a low exposure and then move it up till it's overexposed. But the idea is that so let's say we have a picture and we just took it at a certain look. What we could do is inside of Photoshop, we could superficially, darken some areas and lighten some areas. But all we're doing is we're just adding light, right? We're just lightening up the pixels that are here. Just whatever pixels here, whatever green or gray or blue that's over here, I am just lightening what's there. And over here, I'm just darkening what's there. But we're just superficially adding them. If instead what we do is we take a picture at a low exposure, and then lower, and then higher, and then higher, what that allows us to do is that if we want a light part of the picture, that light that's up here will come from this picture. Instead of us superficially adding light to it, we'll just take the light of this. And what you do is you'll end up getting a larger contrast image by using multiple exposures, so it's more enriched than this superficial, like trying to push what's already there. We use multiple pictures to get the full range of value between all of them, and that's the idea. That's why it's high dynamic range. So what's important though, if you do decide to use this one, is that you have to have the ability to take multiple exposures, and also you need to have the camera completely still. You can't have the camera shift around or the subject shift around. So for instance, I had someone, they took photos, and when they took the photos, there was like a duck. There was like ducks that were walking by, and like in their picture, they have ghost ducks because they were like in some of the exposures and some of them not. And it's the same thing that happened with this one. I had someone, they were doing this panorama, and there was a cat, but the cat like took off, must have been, in one of the photos. And so basically in their photos, there's a headless cat. Like there's a cat sitting there, but it has no head, which is kind of hilarious, but also probably not what you're going for. So same thing here. You can't do anything probably that's live unless it's like your grandma sleeping or something. It has to be still. Okay. Even this actually isn't a terribly good idea because this tree might move a little. So those are the options. So basically choose 2 of those options and complete those and submit them. If you have any questions, you can download the rubric here. If you have any questions, just let me know. All right, good luck, guys.